Hello, welcome back to our chakra exploration series. Today and this week we are going to be exploring the second chakra in our chakra series, and that is our sacral chakra. So today we're going to go over the symbology of it, and while we draw out the symbology, I'm going to give you some information about what this chakra is all about, what it is blocked by, how we essentially relate to this chakra in this modern age, and sort of the areas of exploration for you to allow this to percolate with you a little bit for our session on Wednesday, where we are going to release the blockages. So once you know what the chakra stands for, what its energy is, what its purpose is, then you can actually begin the process of exploring how you are blocked or where you are blocked in regards to these ideas. And then in our next session, we can actually release all of those blockages. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started with our topic and our exploration today. So today we are going to be dealing with the second of the tantric Vedic chakras, and that is the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is called Swadhisthana, and it actually means the establishment of self, right? So this is where we go from an exploration of just being to now expressing our being. And I think what is really interesting is the exploration now of the symbology and how the symbology changes. So the symbology, all of the chakras are represented by lotus flowers, and they all have these petals that explain what the progression is, right? The more petals we have, the more meaning is behind them. Now, the root chakra has only 4 petals, and that stands for the 4 elements, right? It stands for the 4 aspects of life in which we need to find safety and security in order to have a solid block. And the 4 aspects can be minimally put into the 4 elements. So earth, water, fire, air. And that's exactly what it is. We need physical safety, represented by the sign of earth, right? We need emotional safety, which is water. We need mental safety. We need to have safety and security to understand and explore our thoughts and ideas in a open marketplace of ideas, and not be restricted by dogma. And we also need to have freedom and the self-confidence to explore our passions and the things that light us up in our life. And if we have safety and security in all 4 of these aspects of ourselves, then we can really say that we are present, we are self-confident, and we can with confidence say the words I am. And from that place we can actually create the kinds of experiences we want to have in our everyday life. Now, once we get past this basic level, the next level is this establishment of self. Now that I have established I am, I get to establish who I am, what I am. You get to now create from this place of I am. Right? So the mantra for the sacral chakra is I create. Now that I am, now that I've gotten to know myself, now that I feel safe and secure, I create more of myself. Okay? So the symbology for the sacral chakra is a lotus with 6 petals. Okay? So this is the center of our lotus. Okay. And it has 6 petals. So you can have them sort of starting with the cardinal direction, or you can start at the top and just divide each side into 3 equal petals. Again, perfection is not the goal here. The goal is just to have the symbology down. Now, at the bottom of this, the center of this lotus, is a half crescent moon. And this represents the both the element of the second chakra, which is water, and also the planet which is affected by the most, which is the moon. Right? Now, why is water so important when it comes to our sacral chakra? If you think about it, this chakra is also responsible for your physical procreation. And a lot of that requires water and flow of different liquids and fluids and enzymes in the body in order for that to happen. And in fact, if we think about the elements of creation, first you have earth, right? Just the way that life came about on this planet. First we had a hot molten lava cake, really, in earth, and it was hot for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until the surface of the earth cooled long enough for it to have an atmosphere and then liquid water that life began to take form. So the most important parts of creation is this idea of fluidity, of flow of water, and the structure that earth provides. The most fertile thing that we have on the face of this planet is mud. Okay, so when you combine the resourcefulness and the elements of earth with water, when you put the two of them together and then add heat or light in terms of fire and the sun, that's where you have the basic ingredients for life. So in order for us to create life, we need the structure of the earth, and we need the fluidity, the flow that the water creates. Now, this water is also representative of our emotions. Okay, so now we are getting a little bit more metaphysical, even though we're still in the physical realm, even though we're still in the lower chakras. We are now getting to talk about the intangible aspects of being a human being. We're talking about our emotions as well. Okay, so not just our physical body, not just our physical health, but also our emotional health as well. And the ability to express our emotions is incredibly important. Okay. So there's also a seed mantra, as there usually is in the chakra system, and the seed mantra literally stands for white moon, and it looks something like that. Okay. Now, the 6 petals on this lotus in Vedic ideology represents the 6 vrittis, which are affection, pitilessness, a feeling of all destructiveness, delusion, disdain, and suspicion. But more importantly, this chakra is actually associated with these ideas of pleasure, a sense of oneself, a sense of who you are, creating relationships, expressing sensuality, and of course the very literal meaning of procreation. Okay. Now the 6 petals also have individual syllables that is associated with them. I'm not very good at pronouncing them, so I might be saying them wrong, but they are Bam, Baham, Mam, Yam, Ram, and Lam, from my understanding. But again, don't take it from me. Okay. So, when it comes to exploring this chakra, okay, when it comes to exploring the idea of this chakra, the idea is, especially for women, we have a lot to do with this chakra, because at the very least this is the place of exploring our sensuality and our sexuality. And there has been a lot of shame that has been put on this expression, especially of femininity and this form of feminine. And so because of that, the one thing that blocks this chakra is guilt. Okay, so what we want to do, once you have your basic geometry in, and you've noticed I'm not doing the double lines that I usually do, just because I want to show you how simple this process can be, and that you don't actually need to double your lines like I have been, right? All we want to do is take the edges of these petals and create these lines that create an energy flow from your sacral chakra. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time just rounding these lines as we talk about the characteristics of this chakra. So again, this is the seat of expressing oneself, expressing who you really are. And a lot of time, in order for us to do this, we first need to have an understanding of who we are. If we don't know who we are, it is very, very difficult for us to express who we are. So the very first thing we need to do is explore, have the courage to explore what it is that we are without the expectations put on us by society. So this is why it's so important for us to move from one chakra to the next and to gain this understanding from an inside out perspective, right? So this expression isn't the expression that society wants from you. It is the one that you want to create for yourself. Okay. And a lot of us have had a lot of guilt built in to our culture, to our internal thinking. There are a lot of cultures that do a lot with guilt, right? They do a lot of controlling, especially the younger generations, through bringing in guilt. Okay, and guilt actually stops self-expression. When you tell somebody that what they're doing is wrong, it's immoral, it is harmful to society, you are stopping them from expressing themselves, right? This is why we see this idea of guilt about who we are so prominent in certain minority groups like the LGBT community, right? Because they were born different, they were born in a way that the society is not accepting. And so there's a lot of guilt about the expression that those needs and those preferences eventually need. It's called a need for a reason. It is not going to go away. And so over the time, creating a sense of guilt especially when it comes to reproductive practices, has been a very, very effective tool of actually controlling society as a whole, right? And a lot of this actually just upholds both patriarchy and capitalism. A lot of these moral ideas have economic and social justifications at the root of them, especially when it comes to the suppression of sexuality in women, right? Because women could bear children, and maternity is never in question. We know where the baby comes from. You physically see the baby leave the mother's body, right? But paternity could not be so easily understood or checked. And so it was an economic decision to make a woman's virginity of moral value. It was an economic decision because the Lord, or whoever it was that had something to give as inheritance, wanted to make sure that the offspring that it was giving its inheritance to belonged to him. And so because of that economic decision, the virginity of a woman became a moral standard. It has nothing to do with the quality or the value of that person, because women were not even considered persons at that point. We were chattel, right? So there's been a lot of guilt put on women over millennia about our bodies, and a lot of religions do this as well. They are a lot more restrictive with women in terms of their behavior, the way they're dressed, what is acceptable and what is not, what is modest and immodest. There are a lot more rules for women than there are for men. And in most religions, the number one thing that is of concern to be controlled is procreation and sexuality. And there's been a lot of shame put on and around these practices. And this runs contrary to our sacral chakra. We have been put on this planet to explore ourselves and explore our sexuality and sensuality and our sense of creativity. The most basic sense of creativity that we have comes from procreation, comes from creating more versions of us. Right? That's the most basic version of creation. But we are creative in so many other ways. We don't just create ourselves organically. By creating things like computers and the internet, we have recreated ourselves in a different life form, in a different way. Right? If you think about all the information that is available in the universe, it is omnipresent, much like the waves of the internet. Right? The information is omnipresent. All you need to do is turn on a computer, i.e. a receptor, and point it at a certain direction and say, I want a certain batch of information. And that's exactly what your brain does. It is receiving all kinds of information from the environment around you, and it focuses on certain ones and creates the idea of reality that you're experiencing now. The same way that when you search something on the internet, it is actually the computer that is putting up an antenna, bringing in all the information that's available from everywhere around the world, and then changing it and filtering it and showing it to you as images, texts, and other digital content that you can interact with. We have essentially recreated ourselves. This is what we do with our environment. Our brain is a computer. It takes in all the information that is omnipresent around us, focuses on certain parts of it, and based on the programming that we have given it, sifts through it and gives us this idea that we consider to be our reality. Right? So we are creative by nature. We will always recreate ourselves. And being held limited and being put into shame for wanting to express ourselves in certain ways is the easiest way to keep us controllable. So, when it comes to this idea of creativity, and then if we move past the idea of procreation and the ways that we have been limited in that expression, right? The next consideration is when we want to create something in the world, when we want to put our version of something out there into the world. And we have been told that there is this idea of perfection and that we are supposed to be judged from the outside world, and the world is supposed to tell us how worthy our ideas and our causes are, right? And because of that, a lot of us have imposter syndrome. When it comes to wanting to create something, we don't give ourselves the permission to express ourselves in the best way possible and in our fullest capacity. And we are not really kind to each other either. The way that we criticize each other when somebody is trying to do something brand new is also a reflection of how we have internalized this idea of us being limited in our expression and what we can express and how we can express it. Right? So when it comes to this idea of creation, also remember one last thing. Samskaras, which is the physical expression of our internalized trauma, are housed in our root, right? So they live in our root chakra, but they express themselves in the sacral chakra. So when you are wounded, you keep that wound in your core, in the core of you, in the I am statement. But you express it in your sacral chakra. You express it through your relationships. You express it through your relationship with allowing yourself to have pleasure. You express it through the sense of who you are, in a sense of victimhood sometimes. Right? So we express our deepest pains and our deepest desires at the same time. Right? So when it comes to your ability for creation and procreation, can you notice the places where you have been traditionally limited? And can you find out where and how you are limiting yourself now? And how does it feel to be aware of these limitations? Now, when it comes to sexual expression and things like that, I don't want it to sound like I am suggesting promiscuity and this idea of you going out there, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting acting without discernment. I am actually talking about us feeling guilty or feeling ashamed in loving, committed partnerships when it comes to sexual expression. A lot of women don't know their own pleasure. This is why faking orgasms is a thing in our cultures. Because when we don't know our own pleasure as women, there is no way in hell that men are going to be able to know our pleasure. The fact that half the time we feel ashamed to express ourselves, to explore ourselves, to know what it is that we like and we don't like, in a lot of cultures, this is still taboo. For women to be able to get to know themselves and know what it is that they want. Right? A woman who really knows her worth and really knows what she wants in life is called derogatory names. We are told that we are difficult. We are told that, the alpha male is not going to want, or a high value male, whatever that's supposed to mean, is not going to want to interact with that woman. But you know why that is? Because that woman is not going to be able to be controlled. That woman knows her own mind. That woman knows her own body. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who knows her own pleasure. Or a man. There's no difference in genders here. Once you know yourself, once you give yourself the ability and the permission to get to express yourself and who you are and what you want without shame, without fear of judgment from society, that's when you get to express yourself. That's when you get to become yourself. Now, in Vedic ideology, it is very, very difficult to get past this chakra. Most regular people will not, in fact, even go past this chakra or succeed in creating what this chakra is all about, which is this idea of shameless self-expression and self-exploration and co-creating the things that you want to see in this world with the universe. Because the majority of us get stuck in the expression of our samskaras in this chakra. We get stuck in all of the things that stop us from expressing ourselves fully, and we never actually go beyond that into full self-expression. And if we don't express ourselves, then we can't move up the chain to sustaining things, to transforming life as we are meant to. Right? So for majority of us, our awareness stays within the second chakra. Very rarely do we actually move past the energy of this chakra, because it's scary. And because society as a whole is kind of against full expressions of this chakra. When the people who have the courage to do it, society at first calls them fools. It rejects them. It is not until they succeed that all of a sudden the people who have had the courage to express themselves through this chakra are considered heroes. But first, they're called fools. Right? The journey of fool to genius. At first they go, no, you can't do it. It can't be done. It's not right. It's never been done before. And then once somebody does it and succeeds at it, it becomes, oh, wow, look at that. This person was a genius. And so the question that this chakra has to pose for you is, do you have the courage to be the fool? And if your root chakra is not blocked anymore, if your root chakra is not open and you have accumulated this energy of I am, then there should be no problem having the energy to explore yourself, having the courage to be the fool. Because you know yourself, you love yourself, you accept yourself, warts and all. And because of that, you will have the accumulated energy from your root chakra coming into this chakra to allow you to create, to allow you to express, to do the things that other people may not understand. I think for me, this is the one chakra that embodies the saying from Clint Eastwood, which I love, and he says, "The older I get, the more I realize that it's okay to live a life that nobody else understands." And that's the point of this chakra. Can you do what you want to do unapologetically? Can you express yourself? Can you explore yourself? Can you explore your own pleasure? Can you create more joy the way that you feel joy? And can you get to a place of healing your pains and your trauma and your past patterns so that what you create comes from a place of love and pleasure and joy and adds more joy to the world instead of perpetuating the kinds of pain that have been imprinted onto your root. Okay. So, this was a very quick session today where we got to explore the second chakra. We're going to come back on Wednesday, and I'm going to guide you through a quick little meditation where we get to explore the actual chakra within our body, the energy center. And then we get to release any blockages we feel within that energy center so that we can create the kinds of things we want to see in our reality moving forward. So if you have any questions about this session, please leave them in the chat. I will respond to your questions as quickly as I can. If you haven't joined the newsletter yet, please go onto the website and add yourself onto the newsletter so you get the updates and the reminders about these sessions and other sessions that are upcoming. And other than that, I wish you all a beautiful week. I wish you a peaceful self-consideration when it comes to the topics we talked about today. And I will see you all on Wednesday. I will see you all in a couple of days for the next session where we get to release the blockages. I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for joining me. See you all soon.